In the spring of 1945, on the blood-soaked cliffs of Okinawa, courage revealed itself in the most unexpected way. While thousands of soldiers stormed forward with rifles in hand, ready to take enemy lives in service of their country, one man stood apart. Desmond Doss was a United States Army medic who walked into the fury of war without a weapon. He refused to carry a rifle, not because he lacked bravery, but because he believed deeply, unshakably, in the sanctity of every human life. Desmond's convictions were forged long before he set foot on a battlefield. Growing up in Lynchburg, Virginia, during the Great Depression, he was raised in a devout Seventh-day Adventist household where the Ten Commandments weren't merely suggestions, they were divine law. Thou shalt not kill was a principle he could not compromise, even in wartime. As a young man, he had witnessed violence firsthand when his father, struggling with alcoholism, threatened his mother with a gun. Young Desmond intervened, and the terrifying incident left an indelible mark on his soul. From that moment, he vowed never to use a weapon against another human being. When America entered World War II after Pearl Harbor, Desmond felt called to serve his country, but on his own terms. He enlisted in the Army in April 1942, requesting to serve as a non-combatant medic. The military reluctantly accepted his status as a conscientious objector, though many of his fellow soldiers viewed him with suspicion and contempt. They called him a coward. They questioned his patriotism. During basic training, he endured ridicule, physical harassment, and isolation. His commanding officers tried repeatedly to have him discharged or court-martialed for refusing to train with weapons. Some soldiers in his unit refused to serve alongside him, believing he would be useless in combat and might even get them killed. But Desmond Doss would not break. While others trained to fight, Doss trained only to heal. He studied anatomy, practiced first aid techniques, and conditioned his body for the grueling physical demands of battlefield medicine. He learned to move swiftly under pressure, to make split-second decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. He prepared himself not to take lives, but to preserve them, even at great risk to his own. By the spring of 1945, Doss's unit, the 77th Infantry Division, found itself deployed to Okinawa, a strategic Japanese island in the Pacific. The battle for Okinawa would become one of the bloodiest campaigns of World War II, with casualties numbering in the hundreds of thousands. The terrain was unforgiving, jagged cliffs, dense vegetation, and a network of caves and tunnels where Japanese forces had fortified themselves with determined ferocity. Among the most formidable obstacles was a 400-foot escarpment that the Americans called the Maida Escarpment, though it would soon earn a far more infamous name, HACKSAW Ridge. The cliff face was nearly vertical, accessible only by rope ladders and cargo nets. At the top, Japanese machine gun nests, mortars, and artillery batteries commanded every approach. It was a natural fortress, and the enemy was prepared to defend it to the last man. On April 29, 1945, American troops began their assault on HACKSAW Ridge. They scaled the cliffs under withering fire, finally reaching the top and engaging in fierce, close-quarters combat. The fighting was savage and chaotic, hand-to-hand struggles, explosions that shook the earth, screams of the wounded and dying piercing through the thunder of battle. For several hours, the Americans held their position, but the casualties mounted with horrifying speed. Then came the order to retreat. The Japanese counterattack was overwhelming, and to remain on the ridge would mean annihilation. The surviving soldiers began their desperate withdrawal, scrambling back down the cliff face, leaving behind their dead and wounded. It was a soldier's worst nightmare, abandoning their brothers on the battlefield. But to stay meant certain death, except Desmond Doss stayed. While his unit retreated to safety, Doss remained alone on HACKSAW Ridge. Around him lay dozens of wounded men, some crying out for help, others too injured even to speak. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Bullets continued to tear through the air. Japanese soldiers were still advancing, mopping up the battlefield, killing any Americans they found alive. But Desmond Doss had not come to Okinawa to kill, he had come to save. Under constant enemy fire, alone on the battlefield, he began his work. He crawled through smoke and debris, dragging himself across ground slick with blood, searching for the wounded. When he found an injured soldier, he would assess the wounds, apply whatever first aid he could under the circumstances. tourniquets to stop bleeding, morphine to ease pain, bandages to cover gaping wounds. Then, summoning strength that seemed to come from beyond himself, he would drag or carry each man to the edge of the cliff. Therein perhaps the most remarkable display of physical endurance and ingenuity, he would fashion a rope harness around each wounded soldier and carefully lower them down the 400-foot cliff face to safety. One by one, he performed this feat of rescue. Each time required perfect precision, one slip, one miscalculation, and both rescuer and rescued would plummet to their deaths. The ropes burned his hands raw. His muscles screamed in agony. Exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, but still he continued. After each rescue, witnesses below could hear him whisper the same prayer. "Lord, please help me get one more. Just one more." And then one more after that, and one more again. Hour after hour, and as the sun moved across the sky and began its descent toward the horizon, Desmond Doss refused to leave. Bullets tore through his uniform, leaving holes but somehow missing his flesh. Explosions shook the ridge, showering him with debris and earth. He watched as Japanese soldiers moved across the battlefield, and more than once he had to hide among the dead to avoid detection. Yet even in those moments of terror, if he saw a wounded man nearby, he would risk exposure to reach him. By nightfall, when darkness finally provided some cover and forced a pause in the fighting, Desmond Doss had saved 75 men. 75 soldiers who would have died on that ridge, 75 sons and brothers and husbands and fathers who would return home to their families. And he had accomplished this miracle without firing a single shot. But Doss's ordeal was not over. Days later, still on Okinawa, he was wounded himself, caught in the blast of a grenade that peppered his legs and body with shrapnel. True to his character, even as his own blood flowed, he continued to treat other wounded soldiers before allowing anyone to attend to his injuries. While being carried to safety on a stretcher, he insisted that the stretcher bearers put him down and use it to carry another soldier whose wounds were more severe. He even gave up his own stretcher and waited hours for another, all while bleeding from multiple wounds. For his extraordinary courage at HACKSAW Ridge, Desmond Doss was awarded the Medal of Honor on October 12, 1945, by President Harry S. Truman. He became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the nation's highest military decoration. The same men who had once called him a coward now called him a hero. His commanding officers, who had tried to remove him from service, stood in admiration of his valor. Desmond Doss proved something profound that day on HACKSAW Ridge, something that echoes through history and challenges our understanding of courage and heroism. He proved that strength is not always measured by the ability to destroy, but sometimes by the willingness to protect. He demonstrated that heroism does not always come from taking lives. Sometimes the greatest heroism comes from saving them, even at tremendous personal cost. In a war defined by violence and death, one unarmed man armed only with faith, conviction, and an unwavering commitment to his principles became the embodiment of true courage. His legacy reminds us that the most powerful weapon is sometimes compassion, and that the truest warrior is sometimes the one who refuses to fight, but never refuses to serve.